My name is Victoria Lane. I'm 31 years old, a visual designer living in Portland, Oregon. My work revolves around clean, quiet design layouts, completely opposite of the emotional storm I had no idea was coming. I met Noah Whitmore on an April evening during a charity gala my firm sponsored for a local community health center. I was rushing around, checking table arrangements, lighting grids, backdrops, and wrangling a group of nervous waitstaff. "You look like you're planning a United Nations summit," a warm baritone voice said behind me. I turned and saw him. Dark brown hair, gray eyes, white rolled-up shirt sleeves, and an almost unconscious air of confidence. He handed me a glass of wine and said, "You need this more than I do." I don't remember how I smiled, but I remember how it felt, like someone had yanked me out of work mode and dropped me into another world. They call it chemistry, I just call it losing control. Noah was the eldest son of the Whitmore family, a dynasty of real estate investors across the western United States. His father, Charles Whitmore, was a powerful figure in the luxury housing industry, and his mother, Lorraine, was a well-known name in philanthropy and the arts. It sounded like the textbook perfect family, suffocatingly so. And yet they welcomed me, a girl with nothing but a public university design degree and a pair of second-hand shoes, with an almost shocking warmth. In the third week of dating, Noah brought me to their suburban estate in the northern hills. A Mediterranean-style villa surrounded by rose gardens made me hesitate at the gate, but Lorraine hugged me like a long-lost daughter and Charles poured Italian wine and asked what I thought of the newly renovated living room. I remember saying it lacked a focal point, and he laughed with delight. I slowly got used to Sunday dinners at their home. Lorraine's homemade lasagna, a long table draped in lace, laughter, and industry talk I didn't always follow but was always asked about. I became part of them, or so I thought. "You're the closest thing we've ever had to a daughter," Lorraine once told me one night, her hand gently squeezing mine under the table while Noah was up getting dessert. I smiled, throat tightening with joy. It was what I had always longed for. A family. Noah and I were together for nearly 4 years. Everything progressed like any normal couple. Morning coffee, weekend getaways. We didn't talk about marriage in a pressured way, but there were warm conversations like, "What would you name our child?" or, "Should the kitchen face east or west?" I was patient because I believed love needed space to grow. Noah always said he wanted to prove himself in the family business before putting a ring on my finger. I believed him, because I loved him, and because his family made me feel loved too. I used to think, if anything in life was real, it was my love with Noah. I used to think so, until I found out everything on a Friday afternoon, the kind of day that seemed the most ordinary. Noah had texted that he'd forgotten his project files at his parents' house and asked if I could swing by to grab them. It was nothing unusual. I'd had a key to the Whitmore estate for over a year. Lorraine often joked I should just move in to save the back and forth, so I didn't hesitate. I drove to the hilltop estate I once called home. The house was unusually quiet. No piano playing from Lorraine, no hint of her perfume in the air. I walked in, heading for the second-floor library where Noah usually worked with his father. But as I passed the living room, I froze. On the marble coffee table, among scattered documents and invitations, something made my blood turn cold. A wedding invitation. I leaned in. "Mr. and Mrs. Samuel Barringer request the honor of your presence at the marriage of their daughter, Emily Barringer, to Noah Charles Whitmore on December 21st. And I read it again, once, then twice. But the words didn't change. Noah. His name was right there, clear and formal, next to a woman I'd never heard of. Emily. In the center of the card was a photo of the two of them, hand in hand, beaming. My eyes locked on the watch on Noah's wrist, the one I had picked out and given him for his birthday in February. I stood frozen, breath shallow. Footsteps came from the staircase. When I looked up, Lorraine was standing at the top, holding a teacup like nothing had just happened. "Victoria?" She tilted her head, her usual soft tone now cold steel. "You weren't supposed to be in the living room today." I held up the invitation, my hand trembling so badly the edge crumpled. "What is this? Noah's getting married? To someone else? In December? What about me?" Lorraine walked down the stairs, calm as if she were correcting a failed recipe. Noah was going to tell you this week, but the timing seems less than ideal now. I'd been with him for almost 4 years, I choked out. 4 years we lived together, planned for children. I thought... You're a good girl, Victoria, she cut in, her eyes disturbingly indifferent. But that's not enough. Not enough? I repeated. Emily is Senator Berenger's daughter. Our families have been discussing this alliance since last year. You didn't actually think a 4-year relationship was forever, did you? You're more pragmatic than that, aren't you? Then what was I for those 4 years? My voice dropped to a whisper. A placeholder? A convenient disguise? Lorraine didn't answer. She stepped closer, swiftly pulled the invitation from my hand like she feared it might get soiled. Noah will call you, she said. It's best this ends quietly. Our family is willing to offer financial support to help you get back on your feet. I stared at her, slowly stepping back. Everything in that house, the paintings, the vases, the stories I once believed, suddenly felt foreign, staged, nauseatingly fake. I didn't say another word. My legs moved on their own, carrying me to the door. The cold wind slapped my face like a brutal reminder. I was awake now. Rain had started to fall. October rain in Portland doesn't come in sheets. It's a slow, cold seep, like the grief bleeding quietly through my chest. I sat in the car, phone in hand, scrolling through photo after photo of me and Noah. Summer on the beach, Christmas by the fireplace, pizza nights in our tiny apartment. So many memories. So many promises. I hadn't seen anything, not a single sign. Or maybe I had, and refused to believe it? I opened my contacts. My finger hovered over the name of the only person I knew would understand this feeling without needing an explanation. Avery Lane, my older sister. She picked up after the first ring. Vic? Just one word. And I broke down in tears. I don't remember how I drove home. Everything felt drowned in a thick fog, the only clear thing being the ache in my chest, stretching up into my throat. Avery was at my apartment in under 30 minutes, carrying a box of chocolate cake and a bottle of red wine. My sister was never the gentle, hand-on-your-shoulder type. But that night, she sat beside me, asked nothing, analyzed nothing. She just poured the wine, passed the cake, and stayed quiet. When I told her everything, from the wedding invite, the photo, Lorraine's words, to the surreal feeling of having reality stripped away, Avery didn't interrupt me once. When I finished, eyes red and throat raw, she finally spoke. We're not letting them bury this like you're the one who did something wrong. You weren't just betrayed, you were used. Avery is the kind of person who never stays still when someone she loves is hurt. She used to be a journalist before transitioning into strategic communications for an environmental nonprofit. Her network was bigger than my entire contact list combined, and when she said, "Let me call a few people," I knew she meant it. 3 days later, my small apartment turned into a covert command center. There was Caleb, Avery's boyfriend, a cybersecurity expert at a financial consulting firm. Naomi, my best friend from college, now a social media content manager. And Ben, Avery's high school friend who worked as an attorney at a law firm in Seattle. Each person brought their own strength to the table. No one asked if I was sure. They only asked, "When do we start?" We set up a timeline on the wall, gathering every piece of information from the past 4 years. Naomi pulled up Noah's social media accounts, along with those of the Whitmore family and Emily Berenger, the future bride. "This was orchestrated," Naomi muttered, eyes scanning through photo after photo. "Look here. Since last June, the Whitmores and Berengers have been at no less than 5 public events together." Caleb added, "I found a planning memo in Noah's company email. He sent the wedding layout to the event team 3 months ago. That's when you and he were still planning the Hawaii trip." I swallowed hard. I still had the confirmation emails, even the pastel mood board I'd sketched for that vacation. Ben looked at me, serious. "This isn't just betrayal, Victoria. You were used as a shield. If you want to fight back, you'll need a plan. And solid evidence." I nodded. "What do we do with what we've got?" Avery smirked. "The wedding's on December 21st, at Longridge Estate in Napa Valley. It's being pitched as the political business event of the year. Media, VIPs, donors, They'll all be there. Naomi took a sip of wine, eyes sharp as glass. Then we don't need to scream. We just need to tell the truth, at the right moment in the right place. Caleb added, I can tap into their audio-visual system. We're not sabotaging anything, we're just updating the content to reflect the facts. We started assigning roles. Naomi would handle gathering and organizing visual evidence, photos, messages, overlapping schedules, locations. Caleb was building a secure access point into the Longridge estate system. Ben reviewed everything for legal risks, making sure what we revealed was factual, verifiable, and not defamatory. Avery? She mapped out the communication strategy like she was prepping for a political press conference. And me? I was the one who had lived inside the lie for 1,426 days. My job was one only I could do, tell the story. No theatrics, just the truth. As night fell, we sat around my dining table, warm light casting shadows across determined faces. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming dignity. Avery turned to me and asked quietly, Are you sure? Once this starts, there's no going back. I looked down at my phone, a photo of Noah and me at Yosemite, my smile full of trust, his arm wrapped around my waist like he was holding the world together. I turned off the screen. No going back, I said. That's exactly what I need. We called it Operation 20 for the wedding date, December 21st. And because that was the day I would take the truth back for myself. Avery pinned the layout of Longridge Estate to the living room wall, carefully marking each gate, service path, security camera, parking zone, and main ceremony area. Caleb sketched the interface for the venue's display and sound system. He had borrowed access after finding a weakness in the organizer's Wi-Fi protocols. Everything has to happen in under 5 minutes, Caleb stressed. If we execute this right, no one will stop it in time. Naomi would pose as part of the media team. She had already contacted a local news outlet and handed out a fake business card so polished no one would question it. Avery would position herself at the main gate, pretending to be with the event staff, ready to trigger a name mix-up, just long enough to create a distraction so I could slip inside. As for me, I would enter through the staff entrance, wearing a catering uniform Naomi managed to borrow from an event vendor. I'd be carrying a USB loaded with everything Caleb had compiled. Photos, messages, itineraries, emails, enough to shatter any carefully constructed denial. Ben handled the legal side, ensuring every file we showed was authentic, unaltered, and didn't violate privacy laws. We're not here to slander, Ben emphasized, we're here to expose what was hidden. We rehearsed like it was a theatrical production. Each person had a time, a place, a signal. Caleb would control the presentation screens from a van parked just outside. Naomi would signal once Rebecca appeared. I would step forward when the officiant said, If anyone objects to this marriage. We practiced until I had every step memorized, every beat of silence embedded in muscle memory. On the morning of December 21st, the sky was hazy, the air biting cold. I sat in the car with Avery, holding the black service dress and crisp white apron in my lap. You sure? She asked one last time. I'm not here to ruin a wedding, I'm here to reveal a truth that's been buried too long. She squeezed my hand, then stepped out and blended into the staff check-in line at the main gate. I took the long route around the estate, slipping through the kitchen entrance just as the catering team began unloading desserts and champagne. No one noticed me. Everyone was busy. Naomi had already messaged that Rebecca was getting ready to walk out. Everything was on schedule. Caleb texted the group. Cameras and display systems ready, waiting on cue. I walked the main hallway, holding a tray of napkins, weaving through toward the ceremony space. The room was packed, elegant dresses, poised smiles, the clinking of glasses, and hallway whispers. I spotted Lorraine laughing beside the bride's parents. Charles shook hands with Senator Barringer like he was sealing a merger, not marrying off his son. Everything looked perfect. Until the music swelled and the bride appeared, her hand on her father's arm as they walked slowly down the white aisle. Rebecca looked stunning, her lace gown hugging every line, her eyes bright. But there was tension behind that delicate smile. The officiant spoke. We gather here today to witness the sacred union of two souls. My heart thudded. Naomi's voice came through the earpiece. 30 seconds. If anyone has reason to object to this marriage, speak now. I stepped out from the back row, my voice clear. I have a reason. The entire room jolted. Whispers died mid-breath. Hundreds of eyes turned toward me. Rebecca turned. Noah froze. From opposite ends of the room, Naomi, Ben, and two other allies stood in unison. I do too. Caleb triggered the cue. The screen behind the altar blinked to life. There it was, a photo of me and Noah. Hand in hand at the winter cabin in February. The place he said, I don't want anyone but you. Then came the messages. Emails. Pictures. Overlapping timelines. A voice recording of him saying, keep her close until the last minute. Each screen transition revealed a new lie. Rebecca turned to Noah, her voice dry. You've been in love with her this whole time? He didn't answer. Where are you ever going to tell me? She asked again, her eyes beginning to redden. Noah stammered. You don't understand. Rebecca pulled her hand from her father's arm. I understand more than you think. She removed her ring and placed it on the podium. This wedding ends here. The room fell silent. Rebecca stood at the front, the sheer veil falling from her shoulders like the curtain of an illusion being dropped. The engagement ring, once heavy with promise, now lay exposed beside the microphone. Like even it felt ashamed to witness what had just happened. I'm sorry to everyone who came today, she said, voice trembling but steady. The reception will still be held, everything's been paid for, but this wedding is over. Senator Samuel Berenger, Rebecca's father, stepped forward from the front row and placed a hand on her shoulder. He said nothing, but when he turned to face Charles Whitmore, no words were needed. The look alone could freeze a room. Charles, he said, voice low and firm, I believe any further negotiations between the Whitmores and the Berengers are no longer necessary. Charles opened his mouth to respond, but stopped when he saw phones recording from every angle. The glow of camera lights, the murmurs from guests, a few already slipping away from their seats as if trying to disassociate themselves. And he stayed silent. Lorraine was another story. She stormed toward Rebecca, voice sharp as steel. Don't let emotions cloud your judgment. Victoria, she's fabricating this. Rebecca spun to face her. No, Mrs. Whitmore. No one fabricated anything. What's on that screen is real, and you know it. Everyone here does. Lorraine stepped back, her face pale with rage. Noah moved forward, trying to grab Rebecca's hand. I can explain. You had 4 years to explain to her, Rebecca cut in, turning to me. And you had 6 months to be honest with me. You did nothing. Noah looked at me, his eyes bloodshot. You came here to ruin my life? I didn't flinch, let him sit with the truth. No, I said quietly. I came to end a lie that went on for too long. You destroyed your own life, Noah, not me. Rebecca turned to me, eyes brimming with tears. She didn't say anything, just gave a small nod, as if thanking me for saying what she should have known long ago. Caleb shut down the presentation system. The screen went black. But the damage had already spread like ink bleeding into white silk. No one walked away unstained. I walked out of Longridge Estate into the crisp December evening air. Every sound behind me, the whispers, the calling voices, the rustle of silk gowns across the floor, faded like a dream unraveling at the edges. Avery was waiting for me in the parking lot. She wrapped her arms around me the moment I stepped close, not asking a single question. Naomi left her position. Ben pulled out his earpiece and waved from a distance. Caleb closed his laptop in the van and exhaled like a soldier finishing battle. It's done, I whispered. No, not yet, Avery replied. But you took your voice back. The rest? Let them deal with it. Just 2 days later, footage from the wedding leaked online. A guest had recorded the moment I stepped forward from the back of the ceremony and spoke up. The clip wasn't long, but it spread like wildfire. Woman crashes wedding after 4-year deception. A slap in the face to high society. $1 million wedding shattered by one truth. Despite efforts to contain it, the Whitmore family's reputation was fractured. Senator Berenger withdrew all funding from his joint project with Whitmore Holdings. 2 major investors followed suit. An investigative article by an independent newspaper exposed shady business deals, Charles Whitmore had been involved in. The financial world began to stir. No one said it outright, but everyone knew. Noah was the first crack that brought the entire structure down. 3 weeks later, I heard Noah had left Portland. No one knew where he went. Lorraine deleted her social media accounts. Charles didn't appear at any winter real estate summits that year. The morning after, I walked a long trail through the pine forest behind Avery's house. The cold air bit at my face, but it cleared my lungs too. The sky was gray, but inside I no longer felt heavy. 3 weeks after the wedding collapse at Longridge Estate, I received a message from an unknown number. If you're willing, I'd like to meet. Somewhere without flash photography or pitying stares. Rebecca? It took me nearly an hour to decide, but eventually I replied. There's a small coffee shop in Loghurst Park. Saturday morning at 10. That morning light rain fell. Rebecca arrived on time, wearing a light gray trench coat, her hair neatly pinned. She sat at the table by the window, took off her gloves, and placed her cappuccino in front of her, like we were just two ordinary women, chatting about the weather. Thanks for coming, she said first. I nodded. I didn't come to hear an apology. Good, she said with a faint smile. Because I'm not here to apologize on anyone's behalf. I just wanted to say thank you for speaking up. I used to think I was losing my mind. The disappearances, the stories that didn't add up, old photos erased from my phone without explanation. And I believed him. Because I wanted to. I looked at her, not with suspicion but understanding. We weren't enemies. We were two people who had once believed in the same man. We were both lied to, I said, just at different times. We didn't become friends, but as I left the cafe that day I felt like I had untangled the final knot in my chest. A month later I moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico. I needed somewhere farther, somewhere untouched by the image of a wedding ring dropped on an altar. No more streets where Noah and I once walked hand in hand. Santa Fe had always been a dream of mine. Wide skies, red earth, rich native art culture, and a kind of space that allowed me to breathe again like someone new. I landed a job at a design studio specializing in creative products for regional art museums. Not a senior position, but it made me feel like my work mattered. I rented a small adobe house with 2 bedrooms and a cascade of purple bougainvillea hanging off the porch. I started painting again. I went jogging. I learned how to cook Mexican food. I lived like I never had before, fully. Avery flew in to visit nearly every month. Naomi sent care packages full of stickers and handwritten notes. Caleb was interviewing with a tech firm headquartered nearby. He might move. And maybe I'd have my first real friend in this new city. One afternoon I received a package by express mail. The sender: Lorraine Whitmore. Inside was a check for $250,000. No note, no memo line, just a number. Like pain could be priced. I took scissors, cut the check into tiny pieces, placed them in a new envelope, and added a slip of paper. Some things can't be bought back. Not even with money. I mailed it to the Whitmore estate address. I never heard from them again. And honestly, I don't need to. 8 months had passed since I walked out of the gates of Longridge Estate, leaving behind an unclaimed wedding ring and the venomous confusion on Noah's face. Santa Fe was slowly becoming home. I no longer woke up disoriented between what was real and what wasn't. I no longer flinched when gray eyes passed by in a crowd. I drank coffee alone without feeling hollow. I slept peacefully, without needing someone's breath next to me to feel like I existed. I lived, truly lived, through the smallest things. One afternoon, as I sat on the porch sipping mint tea, a message from Naomi lit up my phone. Guess what? Noah's engaged. Daughter of a bank CEO in Dallas. Met her at some investment conference. I stared at the screen, not because it stung, not out of curiosity, but because I was genuinely surprised by how little it stirred in me. I typed back, "Hope they met at the right time." Naomi replied with a single heart emoji, nothing more. That's what good friends do. They know when to speak and when to let silence mean peace. One August morning, I received an invitation to speak at a community art panel. The organizers wanted me to share my journey. How I rebuilt myself through creativity and work after falling apart. I hesitated, for a long time. Not because I feared mentioning Noah, but because I didn't want my story forever tied to his name, like a scar that never healed. Avery was the one who said the sentence that changed my mind. You're not telling it so they remember him, you're telling it to remind yourself that you rewrote what came next. I agreed. That afternoon, standing on a small stage at the local arts center, I looked out at rows of unfamiliar faces, but eyes that understood. They came because they had once been hurt. They stayed because they needed to see hope. I didn't start with pain, I started with a question. What do you do when you realize 4 years of your life were built by someone who never planned to stay? I spoke, no dramatics, no sugarcoating, just the raw slices, how I broke, how I held on, how I finally let go like an arm too tired to keep lifting weight that wasn't mine. I talked about the catering uniform, the USB full of proof, Rebecca's eyes as she removed her ring, the first night I slept without needing someone to assure me I was enough. When I finished, the room stayed quiet for a moment, then applause, steady, unrushed. And I knew I had done something I once thought impossible, told my story without drowning in it. That evening, I walked the familiar red dirt path behind the house. The sun was setting in the west, painting the low hills in deep reds. A thin cloud drifted across the distant mountain, weightless, like my heart. I once thought Noah was the final chapter of a beautiful story cut short. But he wasn't. He was the middle. The rupture that forced me to look inward. I didn't need closure or an apology. Not even someone to say I was right. What I needed was to be free from their grip on my story. I needed freedom, and I found it. Not through winning, but through letting go. I was no longer the victim in someone else's story. I was the narrator of my own. My story isn't just about standing back up after betrayal. It's about reclaiming ownership of my life. From someone deeply wounded, I learned how to walk without a guide, release what didn't deserve me, and rebuild with truth, kindness, and courage. Freedom doesn't come from defeating someone else, it comes from no longer letting them control your mind. And today, I no longer live for the past, I live for the woman I've chosen to become. What do you think about Victoria's journey? What would you do if you were in her place? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about life and family.